My grandmother didn't preach at me. She didn't sit me down and give me the speech. She didn't put the fear of God in me to keep me in line. She didn't make a production out of her faith or wear it like a badge. What she did every single Sunday, without fail, without exception, without making it a thing, was get up, get dressed, go to church. And sometimes she'd take me with her. That's it. That was the whole lesson. A woman who lived what she believed quietly, consistently, without needing anyone to notice. And I didn't understand what that was building in me until it was gone. This is episode 5, the spiritual pillar of the Fresh Method. This isn't a religious episode. This is the episode about why you're building what you're building and what holds you together when the achievements stop being enough. Let's get into it. Welcome back, my peeps. I'm D. Echols, operations manager, real estate investor, founder of Decoding Wealth. We're building wealth the right way, earned, not borrowed, and built on the side of a demanding full-time career. Before we go any further, I want to be direct about something. I'm not professionally trained in anything I talk about on this show. No degree, no certifications, no letters behind my name. What I have is my life. The mistakes I made, the things I've learned the hard way, and the conversations I've had with people who told me they felt the exact same way. That's what it is. Lived experiences, shared honestly. I do this podcast because it's my story. And if my story helps even one person out there, that's enough. That genuinely makes me happy. And specifically on today's topic, faith, purpose, the spiritual side of how we build. If what you hear today stirs something up that's bigger than a podcast can hold, please seek professional support. A pastor, a counselor, a therapist, someone equipped to go where I can't. Don't let pride be the reason you don't get what you actually need. I'm not a substitute for that. I'm just somebody who's been through some stuff and is willing to talk about it out loud. All right, that's the honest part. Now let's go. Today is episode 5, the spiritual pillar, the S in fresh. If you've been with me since episode 1, you know the fresh method. Financial, relationship, emotional, spiritual, health. We've done pillars. Today is the one that touches why we're doing it all. And this is the pillar I almost skipped. Not because it doesn't matter. It matters more than most, but because it's the hardest one to talk about clearly without either sounding preachy or being so vague it means nothing. No politics, no religion. That's what most people say you don't talk about. So I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to tell you my story and let the lessons come out from there. I grew up in Chicago on the South Side, and one of the constraints in being in that upbringing, one of the things I didn't fully appreciate until I was grown, my grandparents and their faith. On Sundays, church. That was the rhythm. It wasn't optional, it wasn't discussed, it was just what happened. But here's the thing I want to be clear about. My grandmother never sat me down and gave me the lecture. She never tried to argue with me into believing anything. She never made faith a performance. It wasn't a theatrical thing, right? She just lived it. She was consistent, steady. Her character on Wednesday looked exactly the same way as her character on Sunday. That's how most grandmothers grew up in the church. The way she treated people with dignity, patience. She was a nurse with a kind and quiet generosity that didn't need applause. That was the lesson. Not anything she ever said to me, what she was. And my grandfather was the same. Two people who were anchored to something bigger than themselves, bigger than them circumstances, bigger than whatever was going wrong that week. And it showed in how they carried themselves. Simple as that. That's how they showed us. I didn't have a language for what they were modeling at the time. I was a kid. I was just going to church on Sunday sometime and kind of taking it in without knowing what I was really taking in at all. But what they were building in me underneath the surface, without my permission, was a root system. Simple as that. Here's what I know now that I didn't know then. You don't get to choose what gets built into you early. The environment you grew up in, the people you watch closest, that goes deep. Whatever you want it or not. My grandparents built faith into me, not preaching, by living. And roots, they don't die just because you stop paying attention to them. They wait. That's important because for a long time, a long stretch, I stopped paying attention to mine. This is my story. I'm going to tell it how it is. You listen, you don't, but hopefully it helps somebody. Here's the thing I don't always advertise. I've been back and forth with religion my whole life. Not just once, not a single clean break or clean return. Back and forth, in and out. Season of real faith, where I was strong, and seasons where I was completely gone, just doing stuff I wasn't supposed to be doing. Seasons of being in a building every week, seasons of not setting foot inside of church for years. I'm not going to dress that up. That's the honest version. That's the most significant drift, the one that cost me the most. Went on for many years, and that one didn't start dramatically. Not a single moment of crisis where I looked up at the sky and said, "That's it, I'm done with you." That's not how it happened. It happened the way most important things roll, slowly, quietly, without announcement. The grind took over. And when the grind is the thing you pour yourself into, when the work is the first thing in the morning and the last thing at night before you go to sleep, when achievement is the measure stick for whether you're enough, it fills the space that faith used to occupy. I went from going to church to going to work. Sunday rhythm rooted in something bigger to a 7-day rhythm rooted in output. And for a while, it worked. I was moving, I was building, I was climbing. And I was using that motion to avoid the question underneath it. What is this all for? The grind is great. It's a great distractor. Best I've ever found. You stay busy enough that the real questions never catch you, as long as you keep moving fast enough. But I was running, I was on that run. I just didn't know it at the time. Here's what life without an anchor actually looks like for me, and this is me. From the outside, everything seems fine. Career is building, income's growing, responsibility expanding. Nobody looking at me from the outside would have said, that man is running on empty. And that's what I was running on. Let's just be honest. The ceiling on what I thought was enough to keep moving, hit the goal, hit the number, new number, get the title, new title. There was no arrival point. There was no moment where I was going to be able to sit down and say, okay, this is what I built. This is what it's for. This is enough. Because I removed the thing that tells you when enough is enough. Spiritual wealth isn't about religion. I want to be careful here because this pillar is for everybody. The person sitting in the pew on Sunday and the person who hasn't been inside the church for 20 years. Both of you need to hear this. What I mean by the spiritual pillar is this. You need an anchor, something bigger than that next goal. The next check, the next promotion, something that answers the why question, not just the what and the how. Without the anchor, achievement becomes a treadmill. And a treadmill, you run into the ground. I know because I was on it. I've been there and I've done that. And I'm just trying to share. June 2023, South Carolina, new office, biggest direct deposit in my life sitting in my bank account. I told you about this moment before in a couple episodes when I talked about emotional pillar, but I want to come back to it from a different angle because the moment wasn't just emotional. It really was spiritual. I sat there, I felt nothing, and my first instinct, like I told you, was to get back to work because the work was the anchor. The work was the whole answer. And in that moment, the work gave me nothing back. Be honest with you. The kind of emptiness doesn't stay quiet. It starts asking questions. And those questions, let me tell you, they're loud. What did I build this for? Who's this actually for? If success feels nothing, then what was I actually chasing? Those aren't career questions, those are spiritual questions. And I didn't have the answers. I had ruined relationships and friendships. The return didn't happen fast. I'm not going to give you a tidy story where I had a breakthrough, found my way back to faith in one quick moment. That's not what happened. What happened was a slow walking back over months. Early 2025 was the real reckoning. Now, I've talked about this across these episodes. But the spiritual piece of the reckoning was this. I started asking that one question again. I let myself sit in it instead of burying it under emotion. I came back to the practices my grandparents modeled. Not necessarily in the same form, but in the same spirit, stillness, intentionality. Giving without keeping score. Anchoring the work beyond something that monitored the paycheck. Here's what changed and the anchor came back. The ceiling lifted. When your why is big enough, when what you're building points to something beyond your own comfort, you don't hit the same walls. You hit hard sessions, absolutely. But you don't get lost in them the same way because you know what direction you're pointed. Purpose-driven wealth builds different than a paycheck-driven wealth. And I don't mean purpose-driven in bumper sticker way. I mean when you can answer the question, what's this all for? And the answer actually means something to you. It changes how you build. It changes how you handle setbacks. It changes how you treat people. It changes how you become in the process. That's what came back when the anchor came back. Not certainly, but it came back. My peeps, let me bring this home because I know some of you are listening to this and you're in the drift. You're building, you're moving, you're connecting. And if somebody caught you in a quiet moment and asks, what is this all actually for? The honest answer would be, I don't fully know. I'm just doing it. I'm just going for the bag. That's okay. That's the starting point, not the failure. Here are 3 things that work. None of them require religion. All of them require intention. Move 1, anchor the grind to why that outlasts the paycheck. Sit down this week, write it out. Not your goals, your why behind the goals. Financial freedom is a goal. So my kids never have to choose between eating and lights staying on. I've been there so many years. On the why I did, that is why. So I can prove to everyone who wrote me off that I was worth betting on. That's why. So my name means something to people who came after. That's a why. Find yours. Write it down. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see it when the seasons get hard. Because the seasons is going to get hard. And on those days, the only thing that keeps you building is knowing that you're building toward something. Protect the stillness daily. Even if it's just 5 minutes before the phone, before the news, before the day gets loud and full and there's hundreds of things pulling you in every direction, sit in 5 minutes of quiet. No agenda, no productivity. Just sit with yourself. Here's why this matters more than it sounds. When you never stop, you never hear yourself. You never hear what's going on. And when you never hear yourself, you start making decisions from the noise around you instead of from the values inside of you. The stillness is where you recalibrate. Don't skip it. Move 3. Give something this week with no expectation of anything back. Not a transaction, not a favor that's owed. Something just given freely to somebody who maybe can't do a thing for you in return. Watch what that does for your inner life. Grace has a way of coming back. Not always from the person you gave it to, but it comes back. And more than that, giving generously, genuinely, from the heart, without keeping score, is one of the fastest ways I know to reconnect with something bigger than yourself. Because it reminds you that this isn't about you. It never was. All right, peeps. Before I close this out, 3 quick questions for the S pillar. Your spiritual check this week. Question 1. What is this all actually for? If I strip away all the titles, the numbers, the goals, what's the real answer? Question 2. When did I last sit in my genuine stillness? No phone, no content, no noise. And if I can't remember, what does that tell me? Question 3. When did I last give something with zero expectation of getting anything back? And how did that feel? Those 3 questions are the spiritual pillar. Those are the ones that separate people who accumulate things from people who actually build something that means something. Your challenge this week, answer all 3 on paper. Someone, nobody else will see it. Be honest. Put it in your notes. Lock it in your phone. That honesty is the starting point for everything. So before I let you go, if this episode hits something for you, share it. Send it to the person who needs to hear this right now. You know who that is. They might not have searched this on their own, but if you put it in front of them, it could land exactly right. Subscribe to the show so you don't miss what's coming. This is the 4th of the 5 fresh pillars, and we're going to keep going. Next one is health. And if you haven't downloaded the DCW app, that's where the Fresh Method lives daily. 5 AI coaches, 1 per pillar. Available anytime you need to check in on your spiritual, financial, emotional, relationship, health, wealth. It lives right now at decodingwealth.net. DECODINGWEAL. This is Decoding Wealth, built on the side. I'm DM. Peace and elbow grease, my peeps. Let's keep building.